Story Blueprint of Retribution.
The rain against the panoramic window of the lawyer's office didn't sound like rain. It sounded like gravel being thrown against the glass, a rhythmic, abrasive scratching that matched the raw sensation in my chest. I sat in a leather chair that cost more than my father's car had cost in the 80s, staring at the mahogany table. The wood was polished to such a high sheen that I could see the distorted reflection of my own face, pale, drawn, with dark circles under my eyes that no amount of concealer could truly hide. Across from me sat Julian. He looked impeccable. Of course he did. He was wearing the charcoal gray suit I had picked out for him in Milan 3 years ago, the one with the subtle pinstripe that made his broad shoulders look even more commanding. He checked his watch, a vintage Patek Philippe, my gift for his 40th birthday, with an air of calculated boredom. He wasn't sad, he wasn't conflicted, he was just impatient. "Genevieve, please," he sighed, the sound sharp and dismissive. "We've been over this clause 3 times. Just sign the papers. You're getting the townhouse, you're getting a generous alimony. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." I looked up from the documents. The sheer volume of paper was staggering. A 20-year marriage, 2 decades of shared breath, shared dreams, and shared struggle, reduced to a stack of dead trees on a cold table. "The townhouse has a mortgage that the alimony barely covers, Julian," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, though my hands were trembling beneath the table. "And you're keeping the firm. You're keeping Architecton. You're keeping my designs." Julian laughed. It was a dry, hollow sound. He leaned forward, his handsome face twisting into that condescending expression he had perfected over the last 5 years, the look of a genius tolerating a simpleton. "Your designs?" he scoffed, glancing at his lawyer, a shark-like man named Montgomery, who was busy tapping on his phone. "Genevieve, darling, let's be realistic. You sketched a few things on napkins over dinner. You gave input. I built the company. I secured the investors. I am the architect. You were the muse. Let's leave it at that." The muse. The word hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. It was the narrative he had spun for the world. Julian, the visionary genius. Genevieve, the supportive, decorative wife who hosted the dinner parties and looked good in silk. He had conveniently forgotten the nights I spent hunched over his drafting table while he slept, correcting his structural calculations. He had forgotten that the Skyline Garden project, the one that put Architecton on the map and earned him the cover of Architectural Digest, was entirely my concept, drawn while he was drunk and despairing after a rejection. He had forgotten that I was the one who charmed the investors when his arrogance nearly drove them away. "I want credit for the Aurora project," I said softly. The room went silent. Even Montgomery stopped tapping on his phone. The Aurora project was the crown jewel. It was a massive, eco-futurist complex planned for the waterfront. It was going to be the legacy of the firm. And every single line, every curve of the glass, every integration of the hydroponic systems was mine. I had spent 2 years working on it in the shadows, letting him present it as his own, because I loved him. Because we were a team. Because I thought his success was our success. Julian's eyes narrowed. The charm evaporated, replaced by a cold, reptilian menace. "The Aurora project is my intellectual property," he hissed. "If you try to claim otherwise, if you try to drag this out in court, I will bury you, Genevieve. I will spend every cent of the company's money to make sure you end up with nothing. Not the townhouse, not the alimony, nothing. You'll be a 45-year-old divorcee living in a studio apartment, wondering where it all went wrong." He leaned back, fixing his cuffs. "Sign the papers. Go find yourself. Take up pottery. Leave the business to the adults." I looked at him, really looked at him. I tried to find the man I had married, the struggling student with paint on his hands who used to read poetry to me in a leaky attic. He was gone, consumed by this stranger in a bespoke suit. I picked up the pen. The weight of it felt immense. "Fine," I whispered. I signed. I signed away 20 years. I signed away my career. I signed away the truth. As I stood up to leave, Julian didn't even stand. He was already texting someone, probably her, Serafina. The 24-year-old intern who understood his vision in a way I apparently no longer could. "Goodbye, Julian," I said. "Take care, Jen," he muttered without looking up. I walked out into the rain. I didn't open my umbrella. I let the water soak through my coat, let the cold shock my system. I walked to my car, sat in the driver's seat, and gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I didn't cry. I had cried enough over the last 6 months. Instead, a different feeling began to rise in my chest. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't despair. It was a cold, hard clarity. It was the realization that I had been the architect of his life, and he had just fired me. But he forgot one thing. An architect knows exactly where the load-bearing walls are, and an architect knows exactly how to bring the whole structure down. 6 months passed. To the outside world, I had vanished. I moved into the townhouse, a beautiful but cavernous Victorian building in the historic district that required constant maintenance. I sold off half my jewelry to fix the roof. I cut my hair, trading my long, soft waves for a sharp, asymmetrical bob that framed my face like a helmet. I spent my days not in pottery classes, as Julian had suggested, but in the library of the city's university and in meetings with a woman named Octavia. Octavia was a legend in the corporate world, a woman who had been chewed up by the patriarchy in the 90s and had spat herself back out as a dragon. She was 60, elegant, and ruthless. She had been a silent investor and architect years ago, before Julian bought her out aggressively. She hated him almost as much as I did. We met on Tuesdays at a small, dimly lit bistro where the waiters knew not to interrupt. "He's announcing the groundbreaking of the Aurora project in 3 months, Octavia said, sipping her espresso. Her eyes, sharp behind red-rimmed glasses, watched me carefully. The press release went out this morning. He's calling it his magnum opus. I stirred my tea, watching the steam rise. Is the financing secured? Mostly, Octavia replied. He's over-leveraged, Genevieve. He's arrogant. He's expanded too fast since you left. He fired the old CFO, the one you hired, and replaced him with some yes man. The budget for Aurora is ballooning. He needs one more major anchor investor to satisfy the banks, or the loans get called in. He'll be looking for foreign capital, I murmured, my mind racing through the spreadsheets I had memorized. He won't want local scrutiny. Exactly. He's hosting a gala next week, the Gilded Age Masquerade Ball. It's strictly A-list. He's going to use it to woo the investors from Dubai and Singapore. Octavia paused, sliding a heavy cream envelope across the table. You weren't invited, obviously, but I was. I looked at the invitation, gold leaf, embossed heavy cardstock. It smelled of pretension. I can't go as your +1, Octavia. He'll have security escort me out before I can reach the hors d'oeuvres. You're not going as my +1, Octavia smiled, a shark-like grin that terrified and delighted me. You're going as the representative of the Vanguard Trust, a reclusive investment fund that has shown sudden interest in high-concept architecture. I don't have the capital to be a fake investor, Octavia. If he runs a background check... The Vanguard Trust is real, Octavia interrupted. I set it up. It has funds. And you, my dear, are going to be its face. But not as Genevieve, the scorned ex-wife. You need to be someone else, someone he won't recognize until it's too late. I touched my new hair. He knows my face, Octavia. We were married for 20 years. He knows the wife who served him tea, Octavia corrected. He doesn't know the woman who is about to destroy him. Besides, it's a masquerade ball, darling. And men like Julian, they never really look at women's faces. They look at the projection of their own desires. The night of the gala, the air was thick with the scent of jasmine and expensive perfume. The venue was a rented historic mansion on the cliffs, illuminated by hundreds of amber floodlights. I arrived in a vintage Rolls-Royce arranged by Octavia. My dress was a weapon. It was deep emerald green, structured velvet that hugged every curve, with a neckline that plunged daringly low and a back that was entirely open. It was the kind of dress the old Genevieve would never have dared to wear. She would have worried it was too much, that it would distract from Julian. Tonight, I wanted to distract. I wore a mask of intricate gold lace that covered the upper half of my face, leaving only my mouth and jaw visible. My lips were painted a dark blood red. I wore colored contact lenses, turning my warm hazel eyes into a piercing, icy blue. As I ascended the grand staircase, I felt a wave of nausea. This was insane. This was a movie plot, not real life. If I was caught, the humiliation would be unbearable. But then I remembered the lawyer's office. I remembered him checking his watch while I signed away my life. I remembered him calling me his muse. The nausea turned into steel. The ballroom was a sea of tuxedos and gowns. A string quartet played a haunting waltz in the corner. I spotted Julian immediately. He was in the center of the room, holding court. He looked older than I remembered, perhaps just more tired. Beside him stood Serafina. She was beautiful, undeniably. Young, glowing, wearing a dress of pale pink chiffon that made her look like a fairy tale princess. But she looked bored, and she looked anxious. She kept glancing at Julian, seeking his approval, and he kept ignoring her, his attention focused on a group of older men in suits. I took a glass of champagne from a passing tray and made my way through the crowd. I moved differently now. I had taken lessons in posture and movement. I walked with a slow, predatory grace. "Mr. Julian Blackwood?" I asked, my voice pitched lower, the accent slightly altered, more transatlantic, unplaceable. Julian turned, his eyes swept over me, lingering on the dress, then the neck, then the masked eyes. There was zero recognition. "I am," he said, flashing that practiced smile. "And you are?" "Valentina Vane," I lied smoothly. "I represent the Vanguard Trust. My associates told me you were the man to speak to about the future of the waterfront." Julian's eyes lit up. The bait was taken. "Vanguard? I've heard rumors. You've been acquiring property in the district." "We appreciate bold vision," I said, stepping closer, invading his personal space just enough to unsettle him. "And I've heard the Aurora project is bold, though some say it's risky." "Risk is just the price of entry for greatness," Julian recited. It was a line I had written for him for a TED Talk 4 years ago. Hearing it now made me want to laugh. "I'd love to see the plans," I said. "Tonight. My partners are impatient. We have capital to deploy, but we leave for Zurich in the morning." Julian hesitated. "Tonight is a celebration." "Business waits for no one, Mr. Blackwood, unless, of course, you already have full funding." I made to turn away. "No, wait," he said quickly. He touched my arm. His touch, once so familiar, now felt like the brush of a dry leaf. "I can show you the model. It's in the private library upstairs. We're unveiling it later, but for a potential partner, a sneak peek is in order. Julian, Serafina's voice was small, the dance is starting, you promised. He looked at her with barely concealed irritation. Serafina, this is business. Go have a drink, entertain the mayor's wife. I'll be down in 20 minutes. He dismissed her like a child. I felt a pang of pity for her, followed by a surge of anger. He hadn't changed. He simply found a new victim. Lead the way, I said to him. The library was quiet, smelling of old leather and furniture polish. In the center of the room, under a spotlight, stood the architectural model of the Aurora project. It was magnificent. Even I had to admit it. Seeing my drawings translated into this 3D reality was breathtaking. The spiraling towers, the glass bridges, the integration of vertical forests, it was a masterpiece. My masterpiece. Julian stood beside me, pride radiating off him. It's going to redefine the skyline. Sustainable, self-sufficient, and aesthetically revolutionary. It's beautiful, I said, honestly. I ran a gloved finger along the edge of the model base. The structural integrity of the suspension bridge. How did you solve the wind shear issue? Julian blinked. It was a technical question. Usually investors asked about square footage or ROI. Well, it's a proprietary tension system. My engineering team and I spent months on it. Did you? I asked, turning to face him. I thought the solution was based on the skeletal structure of the deep-sea sponge Euplectella aspergillum, a concept derived from biomimicry. Julian froze. His face went slack. That was a specific detail. A detail I had researched alone, late at night in our old apartment. I had never explained the biological origin to him fully. I just gave him the math. You are well informed, he stammered, a flicker of unease in his eyes. I do my homework, I said. Tell me, Julian, the central atrium, why is it oriented at exactly 14 degrees north-northeast? He laughed nervously. Aesthetic choice, captures the morning light. No, I corrected him, my voice dropping the fake accent, returning to my own timbre. It's oriented to maximize passive solar gain in winter, while shading the glass in summer to reduce cooling costs by 40%. It's not aesthetic, it's mathematical. He stepped back. He stared at my eyes behind the mask. The color was wrong, but the intensity. He recognized the intensity. Who are you? He whispered. I reached up and untied the silk ribbon of my mask. It fell away. Julian stared. He looked at my hair, my dress, my makeup. It took his brain a moment to reconcile the glamorous predator in front of him with the woman he had discarded in the rain. Genevieve? He breathed. The word was a mixture of horror and confusion. What are you doing here? You look different, I finished for him. Amazing? Powerful? Yes, Julian. It's amazing what happens when you stop carrying the weight of a narcissist on your back. You're Valentina Vane? He looked around as if looking for a hidden camera. Is this a joke? You can't be here. Security. Don't bother, I said calmly. I'm not here to make a scene. I'm here to make a deal. A deal? He regained some of his composure, crossing his arms. You have nothing I want, Genevieve. I have the company. I have the project. You have the project, I nodded, but you don't have the rights to it. We settled this, he sneered. The divorce decree you signed. I signed away my claim to architect on and the marital assets, I said, reaching into my clutch and pulling out a folded document, but I didn't sign away the copyright to my pre-existing intellectual property. I unfolded the paper. It was a copy of a copyright registration, dated 3 years prior. I registered the Aurora designs, I said, under my maiden name 3 years ago, long before the divorce. Long before you even decided to build it. I registered the sketches, the schematics, and the biomimicry study. It's all there, Julian. Legally, the Aurora project is mine. You are building my building. Julian went pale. He snatched the paper from my hand, his eyes scanning the dates. His hands began to shake. This is impossible. You were just doodling. I was working, I snapped. While you were out drinking with clients, I was working. While you were sleeping, I was working. And because I didn't trust you, even then, some part of me knew. I protected my work. You can't do this, he whispered. The investors, the loans. If I don't own the IP, the bank pulls the funding. I'll be bankrupt. Yes, I said simply, you will. Why? He pleaded, the arrogance completely gone, replaced by the desperate face of a man watching his empire crumble. Genevieve, we loved each other. Why destroy me? You didn't love me, Julian, I said, my voice trembling slightly with the ghost of old pain. You loved how I made you look. You loved that I fixed your mistakes. And when you thought you were big enough, you threw me away like a used tissue. You tried to erase me. I stepped closer to the model. I'm not destroying you. I'm just taking back what's mine. What do you want? He asked, defeated. Money? I can give you money. We can rework the settlement. I don't want your money, Julian. I want the truth. I walked to the door of the library. Here is the deal. You will go downstairs. You will announce to the press and the investors that the Aurora project is a collaboration. You will credit me as the lead architect. You will give 51% controlling interest in the specific subsidiary building this project. And you will publicly apologize for overlooking my contributions. That's suicide, he hissed. I'll look like a fool. Or, I continued, I walk out of here. Tomorrow morning, Octavia and my lawyers file an injunction halting construction. We release the copyright proofs to the press. We sue you for fraud. The investors will flee, the bank will foreclose, and you will be left with nothing but your suits. I checked my watch, a simple, elegant piece I bought for myself. You have 10 minutes until the speech. I walked out of the library, leaving him alone with the model of the future he couldn't build without me. I waited on the balcony overlooking the ballroom. The cold sea air felt good against my skin. My heart was pounding, but I felt lighter than I had in years. Below, the music stopped. A spotlight hit the stage. Julian walked up to the microphone. He looked pale, sweating under the lights. Serafina watched him from the front row, looking confused. Ladies and gentlemen, Julian began, his voice wavering slightly before he found his professional mask. Thank you for coming. Tonight, we celebrate the future. He paused. He looked up, scanning the balcony until he saw the flash of my emerald dress in the shadows. But the future, he continued, swallowing hard, is never built by one man alone. For years, Architecton has been praised for its vision, but I must correct the record. A murmur went through the crowd. The Aurora project, Julian said, gripping the podium, is not solely my creation. In fact, the core vision, the engineering marvels you will see tonight, they belong to a brilliant architect who has been the silent force behind this firm for 2 years, my former partner and the lead architect of Aurora, Genevieve Vance. The silence was deafening, then whispers, shock. Genevieve, he said, looking up at me, please join us. I took a deep breath. I walked down the grand staircase, not as the wife, not as the victim, but as the architect. The crowd parted. I saw Octavia in the corner, raising her glass to me with a satisfied smirk. I saw Serafina looking at me with wide eyes, not with jealousy, but with a sudden, dawning realization. She looked from me to Julian, connecting the dots of his insecurity and my competence. I stepped onto the stage. Julian stepped back, ceding the microphone to me. He looked diminished, small. "Thank you, Julian," I said, my voice amplified, clear and strong. The Aurora Project is about resilience. It's about structures that can weather any storm because their foundation is true. I looked at the crowd, and tonight we start building on truth. The aftermath was chaotic but glorious. The press ate it up. The story of the hidden genius wife was far more compelling than just another building launch. Julian's reputation took a hit, but the firm survived because the project was too good to fail. However, he was no longer the king. He was the figurehead. I held the reins of the Aurora Project. 2 weeks later, I was in my new office, the corner office that used to be his conference room. The door opened. It was Serafina. She wasn't wearing pink chiffon. She was wearing jeans and a blazer. She looked tired but determined. "I'm not here to cause trouble," she said, standing in the doorway. "Come in, Serafina," I said, gesturing to a chair. She sat down, fidgeting with her bag. I left him. I wasn't surprised. I heard. He became impossible after that night," she said. "He blamed me. He blamed the catering. He blamed everyone but himself. And I realized he was doing the same thing to me that he did to you, making me feel small so he could feel big." She looked up at me. "I wanted to thank you. Seeing you that night, seeing you take your power back, it woke me up. I'm applying to grad school. I want to study urban planning. On my own." I smiled, a genuine, warm smile. "Good for you, Serafina. Never let anyone write your name in pencil." "Can I ask you something?" she said, pausing at the door. "Do you forgive him?" I looked out the window at the construction cranes in the distance, working on my building. "Forgiveness is tricky," I said. "I don't hate him anymore. Hate takes too much energy. He's just a part of my past now. A lesson I had to learn. But I didn't do this for him, and I didn't do it for revenge, really. What did you do it for?" "For myself," I said, "to prove that I exist." It's been a year since that night. The Aurora Project is nearing completion. It's beautiful. I walk through the steel skeleton and feel the hum of the city around me. Julian moved to London. He started a smaller firm. We speak only through lawyers, and occasionally about logistics. He is polite, he is respectful. He learned the hard way that I am not to be trifled with. I live alone in the townhouse, which is fully renovated now. I have a garden, I have peace, and I have my name on the brass plaque at the entrance of the most iconic building in the city. Sometimes life breaks us down to the foundation. It strips away the drywall, the paint, the decoration, until we are just bare beams exposed to the cold rain. It hurts. God, it hurts. But it is only when you are stripped bare that you can see the cracks in the design. And it is only then that you can rebuild, stronger, taller, and entirely on your own terms. Revenge isn't about hurting the other person. That's petty. That's fleeting. True vengeance is succeeding without them. It's taking the bricks they threw at you and building a castle they can't enter. So, if you are sitting there, feeling small, feeling erased, feeling like someone else holds the pen to your life story, grab the pen back. Scream if you have to. Fight if you have to. But never, ever let them convince you that you are just a supporting character in their movie. You are the protagonist. You are the architect. Start building. Thank you for reading my story. I know many of you have faced betrayal. I know the pain of feeling like your contributions were invisible. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to rebuild yourself from the ground up, please let me know in the comments below. Have you ever had to reclaim your credit or your voice? Do you think Genevieve did the right thing by forcing Julian's hand, or should she have just walked away? How did you handle your own Julian? Please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next story. We have a powerful drama coming next week about a mother protecting her child against all odds. You won't want to miss it. Share this story with a friend who needs to be reminded of her strength.